Thank you so much. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our series where we are talking to our candidates who are in contested primaries. My name is Kevin Creech. I am chair of Wake County Democratic Party. I'm going to take a quick second to thank you all for being here. And I also want to take a quick second to thank those who are assisting with tonight's event. First Vice Chair Nick Long, Organizing Director Michael Abasevich, our fourth Vice Chair, Dr. Christy Bird, our Treasurer, Laura Cabal, and of course, our Executive Director, Wesley Knott. Thank you very, very much. And we also want to thank the candidates who are here tonight. And there are some who weren't able to come, but there are some who are here, and we're looking forward to a really, really good conversation. So a little bit of housekeeping. This is a webinar, so chat is not available to our folks who are in the audience, but you will be able to see and hear candidates very, very clearly. Also, with regard to order, so that when we get to the portion where we are asking questions, the questions are anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes long for folks to be able to respond. Whoever is the first person to do their introduction, and there's a 1-minute piece at the beginning of the segment for our candidates, that person will then be going last, be able to answer last in the question and answer portion. We did a random draw, so I will let you know who those people are and what their order is in just a moment. Next slide, please. Really quickly, folks, we are entering the primary election period. Early voting begins on February 15th, lasts through the 2nd. We do have 13 early voting sites here in Wake County. Do note that photo ID is required. Some ballot particulars: unaffiliated voters can choose any partisan ballot that they want to complete, but Democrats, Republicans, and Libertarians may only have partisan-specific ballots. Please note that our Super Tuesday is March 5th. All polls all over North Carolina will be open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Next slide, please. We want to give you a full overview of who's running for what. Again, not all candidates are here this evening, but do note that we've got Democratic candidates from North Carolina: Lieutenant Governor, former Senator Ben Clark, who is not here, but he did provide some introductory material, which we will cover in a moment. Senator Rachel Hunt, not Clark, and Captain Mark H. Robinson. And then for the Democratic candidates for NC Attorney General, we have former Durham DA Satana DeBerry, Colonel Tim Dunn, and U.S. Representative Jeff Jackson. So on that note, we are going to go ahead, and the presenters are going to provide a little bit of introduction for our folks who are here this evening. We are going to begin tonight with our Attorney General candidates. We had intended for it to be the other way around, but Representative Jeff Jackson got a surprise call about a surprise vote on the congressional floor this evening, so we needed to make room for that. First up, Tim Dunn. Ms. Cabal, if you could show Tim Dunn's slide, that would be fantastic. He is not here this evening. But the information that we have for him: he is a retired colonel serving in the U.S. Marines, and he is running for Attorney General, just like a lot of folks this evening. So next up, we're going to hear about Satana DeBerry from Michael. Michael, if you could please share her lovely introduction.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. DeBerry.
District Attorney Satana DeBerry is running for North Carolina Attorney General. As a North Carolina native from Hamlet, North Carolina, she has worked to dismantle systems that restrict the lives of poor people, families, communities of color, and other marginalized and underrepresented groups. Her daughters inspire her work, where she has been the executive director of the North Carolina Housing Coalition and currently the district attorney of Durham County. As district attorney, she's implemented policies to reduce unnecessary pretrial incarceration and work to improve the trust and equity in the courts. As attorney general, she will never prosecute women or doctors for seeking or performing an abortion. As the mother of 2 children who almost died in childbirth, DeBerry understands how deeply personal reproductive care is and how restrictive access disproportionately affects women of color and poor women. DeBerry will continue tackling crime by going after predatory insurance and pharmaceutical companies, filling our neighborhoods with fentanyl. DeBerry understands the battles earlier generations fought to ensure every North Carolinian equal rights, which are now under attack. DeBerry will lead a justice system that treats everyone fairly and protects the rights of all North Carolinians, including our sacred right to vote.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We are very, very excited to have her with us this evening. Next up, we will hear about Congressman Jeff Jackson. Mr. Nick, are you ready to read his introduction?
I am, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
As a congressman, veteran, former prosecutor, and a current major in the Army National Guard, Jeff has dedicated his life to public service. Now he's running to continue that work as our Attorney General. After the 9/11 attacks, Jeff enlisted and served in Afghanistan. After he returned home, Jeff attended law school at UNC with help from the GI Bill. He then served as an assistant district attorney in Gaston County, trying more than 100 cases. In the process, he saw firsthand how a failure to properly invest in public education, health care, and criminal justice reform was harming families across North Carolina. Jeff served 8 years as a state senator, championing criminal justice reform, support for public education, and fighting political corruption like gerrymandering. Since he's been in Congress, he's brought transparency to millions of folks who follow the process through the video and newsletter updates he provides. Jeff is an original sponsor of the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to protect voting rights, the Women's Health Protection Act to put the protections of Roe versus Wade into a federal law, and the PRO Act to increase pay and protections for all workers.
Wonderful. Okay, so in just a moment, we're going to give both of our candidates 1 minute to make an opening statement. Candidates, you will be spotlit while you're making your opening statement. We will also have a timer. Michael, would you please put the timer up so that they can see it? All right, candidates, please look up to the right-hand side of your screen and give me a thumbs up if you can see the timer. Awesome, fantastic, super excited. Okay, we did a random draw to see who would do introductions first, and DA DeBerry, you will be first, which means at the end of the question and answer section, you get to do your closing statement. You get to go last for that. And Congressman Jackson, you will be second. Again, this is 1 minute. Tell us in 1 minute about yourself. Make your opening statement. As soon as you begin speaking, the timer will begin. DA DeBerry, you're up.
Good evening. Again, my name is Satana DeBerry. I am the current elected district attorney in Durham County. I am the two-term elected district attorney in Durham County. And everything that the Attorney General does, I have done before in my career. I am easily the most qualified candidate in this race. I have spent my whole career as a public lawyer, everything from being general counsel at the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services to running 2 large nonprofits, Durham Habitat and North Carolina Housing Coalition. I've also worked for self-help and done consumer finance issues, and really have the lived experience of the most vulnerable people in North Carolina. And so as most qualified candidate, I am looking forward from day one to being able to protect your voting and reproductive rights in a way that it shows political courage and understanding of how the legal system works. And so thank you, and I look forward to your questions tonight.
My goodness, thank you. And again, apologies. I don't know why I thought you were the former. You are the acting DA of Durham, and that is badass. So thank you. All right. Let's see here. Mr. Abasevich, just a quick note. It's 1 minute for opening statements. Thank you very much. And next, we're going to hear from Representative Jeff Jackson, who has to run back to the floor in a bit. Representative Jackson, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, and thank you for accommodating the schedule. There is a vote this evening we weren't planning on, but it's actually, I think, going to be something good. I think it's going to be a tax credit that allows us to send a good chunk of change to working families in North Carolina. So we'll see if it passes. I think it's going to be close. I'm Jeff Jackson. I'm a member of Congress from Charlotte, North Carolina, originally from Chapel Hill. I've been a soldier, a prosecutor, and a legislator, both on the state side and the federal side. And I think I've got a wide range of experience that's going to prepare me for the challenges that the next Attorney General faces. I think working with this General Assembly is going to present a number of challenges. Frankly, I expect them to continue running offense on things like voting rights and reproductive rights, being able to stand up for those in a way that's very clear, very firm, very direct, I think is going to be really important. But there are also emerging threats with AI and how scammers are going to use them to attack your bank accounts. There's going to be a wide range of challenges here, and I look forward to talking more about it.
Thank you so much. And we are so delighted you're here. You have been doing such a great job up at the Hill, and thank you for that. Okay, so we are going to get into the question and answer portion. Again, we will tell you what the topic is. We will read the question to you. If you need it read a second or third time, we will be happy to do that. In fact, the first time we read it, we generally read it 2 times. So please ask. And we will begin. Our first question will go first to D.A. DeBerry. You will start with the first question, and then Congressman Jackson will go after you. And once again, you get to close this out with the closing statements last. So that's the little extra pickle on the side for going first. Okay, this first question is pretty straightforward. It's 1 minute apiece, and here it goes. D.A. DeBerry, in a minute or less, please detail why you decided to run for this position. In a minute or less, please detail why you decided to run for this position. What are your motivations? 1 minute.
Sure. So I am a little Black girl from Hamlet, North Carolina. I grew up in the community in which my family had been enslaved. And I went from a public school in Hamlet, North Carolina, to Princeton University, and then to Duke Law School. I'm not sure that is available to people in North Carolina anymore. It certainly is not available to young women of color. And the reason I am running is because I am the most qualified person to do this at this particular moment in time. The people who have their rights jeopardized in this state are people who look like me, who are women, who are people of color, who are people who come from rural communities, people who are the most vulnerable. And that lived experience and my legal experience together are unbeatable. Dan Bishop is not going to be able to work against me in a way that he would somebody with a more traditional background.
Thank you so much. And you demonstrated very well. If you hear the timer go off and then you are in the middle of a sentence, please finish your sentence. This is hard enough as it is. All right, Representative Jackson, you're up. Do you need me to reread the prompt?
No, it's okay. I got it.
All right.
I'm running because I've got a certain protective instinct in me that makes me want to stand up for people. And I always have. I enlisted after September 11th, having never really thought, frankly, about joining the military, not coming from a military family, because we had been attacked. And I just thought that was the right thing to do. I was in college then. I spent a year in Afghanistan with Army Special Operations. I came home, went to law school on the GI Bill, and it was pretty clear I needed to become a prosecutor because that was the sort of job that was available to me right out of law school that would allow me to stick up for people. I had the opportunity to go to the state Senate, and that's the role that I played there. I believe that's the role that I'm playing in Congress. If you have a compulsion to feel useful, a compulsion to stand up for people, there is no better job than Attorney General. I think I'm prepared to do this. I think I've got the engine inside that you need to have a job that really is about getting in a fight on a regular basis on behalf of the people. There's a lot of legal language for what this job is about, but that's what the job's really about.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to our second question. The topic is priorities. Our first Vice Chair, Nick Long, Esquire, will be asking this question. It is a 2-minute question. Again, it's a 2-minute question. We will begin with Representative Jackson. Mr. Long, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Jackson, in 2 minutes or less, please share a couple of your top priorities, why you've chosen them, and how you plan to effectuate your priorities if you become our next Attorney General.
Well, I've mentioned two of them already. I think defensive voting rights and defensive reproductive rights are going to be high on the list, mainly because I expect the General Assembly to continue to run offense on those two rights. I will say within voting rights, gerrymandering, which in North Carolina always takes the form of racial gerrymandering, is especially pernicious. The first bill I ever filed in the state Senate was to end gerrymandering. That would be something I would be maximally aggressive on from my perch as Attorney General. Having said those two things, let's talk about fentanyl for a second. It's a major problem in North Carolina. We're losing 12 people a day to the fentanyl crisis. In the mid-1990s, Purdue Pharma lied to a bunch of doctors and said they had invented a new opiate that wasn't addictive. So doctors started prescribing it and a ton of people got addicted, and we had what was then called the prescription drug crisis. It took us about 15 years to crack down, and when we did, people who were still addicted went to the streets to get their fix for opium, and it was in the form of heroin. Well, after a few years, a more synthetic, less expensive to produce version of that came along, and that's called fentanyl. The drugs come from China. They go to Mexico. There are 2 cartels specifically that manufacture almost all of the fentanyl that's making it into the United States. And as a result, there's just an enormous epidemic that's hitting some counties really, really hard. Robinson County, Scotland County, just being really smashed. So we have to work on the demand side, both with making sure we have medicated assisted treatment for addiction. We should have restoration of funding for drug courts that the state legislature gutted about a decade ago. And then on the supply side, there's a lot to do. There's an existing task force in North Carolina. They've got some recommendations we need to implement. One of those is to have an anti-money laundering law, which for some reason we don't have in North Carolina. There was a version of it proposed in the last General Assembly, but it wasn't adopted. So one of the first things that I would do is champion an anti-money laundering law, which would be helpful.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. C.A. DeBerry, let me read it to you anyway.
Great. Thank you, Nick.
In 2 minutes or less, please share your top priorities, why you chose them, and how you plan to effectuate them if you become our next Attorney General.
Thanks, Nick. So just as Representative Jackson said, we're both Democrats, so our top 2 priorities naturally are going to be the protection of reproductive rights as well as the protection of voting rights. I have extensive experience in both reproductive rights. I am the only district attorney in North Carolina who has been very clear that she would never prosecute. It doesn't matter who the General Assembly is, doesn't matter who the Attorney General is. They would never prosecute a pregnant person nor their doctor for making that reproductive choice. I am part of a task force, a regional task force that has been working on voting rights issues and especially preparing for political violence in 2024. And so as Attorney General, I have a background in working with other states and working across jurisdictions on voting rights issues, especially protecting the most vulnerable voters at the polls. And like Representative Jackson, I would be maximally aggressive, as he said, in the courts, defending the basic rights of North Carolinians. I grew up in a family in which my own grandparents fought for their voting rights, and my father was almost court-martialed for leaving base to go vote when he was in Vietnam. So I know what is at stake really here. I'd also be focused on fentanyl. I live in one of the counties that has the largest death rate, especially among Black opioid users in the state. And again, I am already part of a federal and local task force that is working on that. Durham County has, through partnerships and through money from the opioid settlement, thanks to current Attorney General Josh Stein, we have upped our Medicaid assisted treatment. I would take that statewide I am not as big a fan of drug courts because that criminalizes substance abuse. So we would really try to work through our partnerships in the community.
Thank you. You both did very, very well. And thank you, Nick. Okay, up next, we will hear from Michael Abasavage, who is our organizing director. This topic has to do with Leandro. It is a 2-minute topic, or you have 2 minutes to answer it. And let me double check here. We will hear from D.A. DeBerry first, and after that, we will hear from Representative Jackson. Michael, the floor is yours.
Our third topic for this evening, the children who were plaintiffs in the Leandro case are in their mid-30s or 40s and have children of their own in North Carolina public schools, and no money has been shifted to lower income counties for these schools. Please use up to 2 minutes to discuss how you would get the Leandro case enforced, since our General Assembly and Supreme Court have routinely balked or outright balked at this mandate. What can be done to make the Leandro ruling a reality?
So I have been in the practice of law this August 30 years. The Leandro case started around the same time that I started practicing law. So I'm very much aware of how long it has been since that case has been languishing in our courts. I myself grew up in a low wealth school district. And again, I know what is at stake for those children as those communities continue to lose funding, not just from the General Assembly, but through vouchers and through charter schools here in Durham County. We are currently in a crisis around pay for our teachers because of how much money has been shifted from our county into charter schools and into vouchers. Now, having said that, the federal courts have always been, and probably will always continue to be, the place where the most vulnerable populations can have their grievances redressed. And so as Attorney General, I'm not so much concerned about my own political future. I don't have any intention of being governor or going to Congress. I have the intention of being the Attorney General and fighting for the people of North Carolina and protecting our school children. And so I would, craft a strategy that is similar to the strategy that was crafted around the desegregation of our schools during the Civil Rights era, and work through a strategy that used the federal courts, used limited state court involvement to enforce the civil rights of those students without worrying about how it's going to affect my career later on.
Congressman Jackson, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I got it. So here's the thing. We right now are in the middle of a legal battle that could be incredibly harmful to Leandro, but also to precedent with respect to giving real substance and meaning to that section of our state constitution. The state Supreme Court in November of 2022 basically said, look, that part of our constitution has real meaning, and the court can order the state to enforce that part of our state constitution. Well, now the Republican-led state legislature is trying to roll that back. And frankly, I agree with the strategy of our current Attorney General with respect to this, as far as using every lever that he has. The strongest lever that he has is to file a brief, which he has done. He filed a brief that said, and it's great. I commend it to everybody here. It's very long. It's over 300 pages, but it just lays out all the evidence why this would be a clear breach of precedent and would be inappropriate for our state Supreme Court as currently composed to basically overrule the previous Supreme Court. Now, look, that said, that's exactly what they did on gerrymandering. Right? This state Supreme Court made a very clear ruling with respect to, in particular, the congressional map and then a new state Supreme Court came in, disregarded precedent, disregarded the Constitution, and threw that out the window. So there are limitations to what the Attorney General can do. There are limitations on our expectations of this state Supreme Court, but what I could do in that position would be to make the strongest legal argument possible while also making the argument publicly. We haven't talked about this explicitly, but part of the role of the Attorney General is to be a public advocate. You do have a bully pulpit in that position, using that effectively and making your case to the people, the court of public opinion. I think it's completely appropriate with respect to public funding of education.
Thank you very much, both of you. We are going to go on to topic 4, and Nick Long will be asking this question. This is a 2-minute question. Mr. Long, please note where we are in timing. This has to do with navigating the new world that we're in with regard to stare decisis. And Mr. Long, I am going to let you go ahead and get started. Representative Jackson, you will be first, and DA DeBerry, you will be second. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, you already foreshadowed this next question. One of the roles of the Attorney General is to represent the state of North Carolina in all appellate court proceedings. Both the North Carolina and federal appellate courts have shown a willingness to ignore precedent, change rulings, sometimes only weeks after the court has ruled another way. How will you instruct your staff to deal with this brave new world where stare decisis may not mean what we thought it meant?
This is the first question that I have gotten on stare decisis. So I commend all of you on knowing the actual legal landscape and how it's sort of become so politicized within the last year or so. And you are exactly right. There is no silver bullet on this one. I think my basic answer is that I would make the arguments that I felt were within the bounds of the Constitution. I would make them aggressively. I would make them often in the court of public opinion if I felt that I wasn't going to get a fair hearing in our judicial system. I think that's the full use of the authority under the Attorney General. But I'll tell you this, I'm working really hard to support judicial candidates. I'm working hard to support folks like Allison Riggs because we need to solve this problem at the ballot box. Ultimately, the voters, it's strange to say, but the voters are going to have much more of a say ultimately on whether stare decisis is a real doctrine by determining who sits on the state Supreme Court. And that shouldn't be the case, but it appears it is simply because of how partisan and politicized our state Supreme Court has been. I would also do this. I would support taking away the R or the D next to those positions. We're the only state in the last 100 years that went from having nonpartisan judicial races to partisan judicial races. And it just invites a whole host of partisan incentives once you have that, just as a bit of an aside. I think Satana made a very good point with respect to the use of federal courts when possible. Absolutely. Sometimes jurisdictionally, that's just not open to you as an option.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. DA DeBerry, would you like for me to repeat the question?
No, I am very clear on this particular question. If you have followed me on social media, you've heard me say more than once that stare decisis seems to be dead. It is one of the bedrock principles of our legal democracy, and this is a hard question to answer because, again, there is no, as Representative Jackson said, there is no easy answer to this. There is no way to say that as AG, I'm going to come in and force the courts to do anything. Now, again, the Attorney General has a huge bully pulpit. Certainly the General Assembly is also, and I think we continue to run this risk, has also shrunk the number of lawyers in that office and really tried to shift a lot of that the legal firepower of the AG to the General Assembly or to the executive, in hopes that they would have an executive that is in a different party. And so it is going to be imperative that the next Attorney General, we hope, one, be a Democrat, and two, lean very heavily on the other Democratic Attorney Generals in this country. Lean very heavily on them to help craft legal arguments of which the North Carolina Attorney General can be a part, that can bring to the federal courts some diversity of opinion on some of these issues, so that there are some more, what is the best word? There are some better rulings in some different circuits, and really have nonprofit and non-governmental organizations work with the AG in the federal courts, because I think our state courts are hostile to this idea.
Well done. Thank you both. And to watch both of your faces light up when the topic came up was quite amusing. All right, we are going to go to one final question. This is a candidate's choice question. This is going to be a 1-minute question. I'm going to ask it to be thinking about one thing that you want to talk about in this minute. So we will have DA DeBerry and then Congressman Jackson. And then after that, we will have a bit of a transition and we'll go into closing statements. 1-minute question. DA DeBerry, please use the next minute to discuss in as much detail as you can an issue central to your candidacy. And when you start talking, the timer will begin.
So the issue that is central to my candidacy is electability. I think that there has been lots of question about whether or not a Black woman can be elected as Attorney General in North Carolina. And I'm here to tell you that that can happen, because electability only means that you elect me. And so it is really important that, when I was growing up, the reason I went to school was for a time as this. And it is time for people like me, the people who are the most impacted, to lead. Their voters know what they want, and what they want is not the same thing that they've always had. We cannot keep electing the same type of person, hoping that some magic will hit and things will be different. We are ready to lead. Those of us who are in the new American majority, Black women, people of color, queer people, we are here to lead, and we are ready. And so that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you so much. Congressman Jackson, do you need me to reread the question, or do you have it?
Did you reread the question?
Yes. Please use the next minute to discuss in as much detail as you can an issue that is central to your candidacy.
Okay. An issue that would be central to the candidacy: discuss the issues of voting rights and reproductive rights and fentanyl. An additional issue that would be central is the collision of AI with scammers and how much more sophisticated these scammers are about to get. We've got testimony from grandparents who are getting calls from their grandchildren saying, "I need you to wire me money. I was just in a car accident." They say, "Absolutely." And they hang up, and then they say, "Oh, let me call them back and ask a question." As it turns out, that call was never made, and the entire thing was AI. I think Josh has done a really good job of tackling a lot of these scammers and telemarketers, but I think that threat is about to become much more sophisticated and much more difficult. And if we're not careful, if the next Attorney General isn't extremely intentional about getting ahead of that threat, tens of thousands of our citizens just in North Carolina, particularly seniors, are going to be swindled before we have a chance to react. So we really need to react first. I think I'd be in a position to help advise people of that threat, because we have, okay, there you go, time.
Oh, very well. Well done, both of you. Okay, we are going to transition now to your closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes to make the closing statement. And since the DA kicked us off, she gets the privilege of going last with her closing statement. So we will hear first from Congressman Jackson. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Y'all, it's been a joy. This has been a very well run, very well engaged, and really high-minded conversation. And I really appreciate it. I've had the opportunity to do a handful of these, and this is a really good one. Hey, y'all, look, we're going to win this thing. We're going to win this thing. It's going to be close, but we can do this. I know anxiety levels are high about this next election. This election is going to be fantastic for our state. I'm really enjoying being out on the campaign trail. I've had the chance to visit a lot of counties already, have a very ambitious plan about how much road we can cover during the course of the next 9 months, have the opportunity to reach several million people, frankly, via social media. When you're talking about turning out young people, there is no real way to do that at scale unless you have a sizable social media presence. So I'm excited about having that asset. I'm excited about beating Dan Bishop. Look, y'all, the real stakes here, the nightmare scenario is that Dan Bishop and Paul Newby at the state Supreme Court just lock arms and can roll back voting rights and roll back reproductive rights, no matter who the next governor is and no matter whether or not that governor's veto can be sustained. We have to prevent that. The last election, Josh Stein won by 0.2. This will be the most expensive, most competitive AG race in the history of the state. I'm prepared to compete, win, and then lead the way all of you deserve. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now we will hear from the DA. This is exciting. You have 2 minutes to state your case, and the floor is yours.
Great. Well, like Representative Jackson, I want to thank you all. This has actually been a very legal oriented forum, and it's very exciting as a lawyer to get to actually talk legal stuff. And the thing that I would say just to end this is I already represent the state of North Carolina. When I stand up in the courtroom, that is the first thing I say, is I am Satana DeBerry, representing the state of North Carolina and the people of North Carolina. I am a public lawyer with 30 years of experience representing this public. There will never be a clearer choice in the fall than between me and Dan Bishop. We could not be polar opposites. And what I think the Democrats need in the fall is to turn out infrequent voters, people who have no reason to get up off the couch. And I am that candidate for a lot of those voters, for people in rural communities, for Black voters, for women voters. I am somebody who they know will show the political courage necessary to put their rights ahead of everything else, including my own career, quite frankly. And that is all I have ever done. That is all I've ever committed to doing. And that's all I will ever continue to do. And so in North Carolina, we have to make a choice going forward. Who are we going to be? Are we going to be a place where we say the only people who can lead us, the only people who are available and strong and electable are the same people we've always elected? Or is it time now for us to put different people in leadership, to put people who have actually done these jobs? And from day one, I will be able to not only run the AG's office, I have run multiple multi-million-dollar organizations, and I have the legal chops to protect the people of North Carolina.
Thank you. Again, we are so grateful that the two of you were able to come this evening and spend time with us. We're grateful that you have stepped up for this position, and we're grateful for the leadership that you've already been blessing North Carolina with. Don't forget that this is being recorded. We will post this publicly, so hopefully you'll be able to take it and share it as you need. And on that note, we are now going to transition to the next segment where we will be speaking with our Lieutenant Governor candidates. And I would ask Ms. Laura, if you would please do me the greatest favor, bring up the slideshow so that we can show Ben Clark, Mark H. Robinson, and Rachel Hunt as we are presenting for them. Michael Abasevich will read the introduction that was provided to us by Senator Ben Clark. After that, I will introduce Captain Robinson, and then after that, Nick will introduce Senator Rachel Hunt. So, are we ready, Michael?
We are ready. Ben Clark was born at the old Womack Hospital at Fort Liberty, formerly Fort Bragg, to an Army helicopter pilot and a school teacher. A proud Aggie, Ben was born in ROTC at NC-A&T and commissioned as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force. After serving 20 years, he retired as a lieutenant colonel and returned to Hope County. For 20 years, he's worked at Fort Liberty, training soldiers on the nation's most sophisticated mission command systems. He served 5 terms in the North Carolina Senate, representing Hoke and Cumberland counties. In 2024, Ben is running for lieutenant governor on his own name and his own record.
Thank you very much. And now I will do an introduction for Captain Robinson. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Mark Robinson, H. Robinson says, I am running because I am a servant leader, someone who puts the needs of others before me. I grew up poor, but didn't know it. I was reared on a farm in Sampson County, the 8th of 10 children. My family reluctantly used county services as a safety net when absolutely necessary. I was reared by a village with parents, grandparents, teachers, church, and neighbors who encouraged and gave me hope. I have lived beyond my childhood expectations as a result. I am the father of three, a UNC Chapel Hill grad, naval officer, Duke MBA, who has created and donated over $35,000 to high school scholarships since 2007 and $30,000 to charities and nonprofits. I pay it forward. I bring a clean slate with 30 years as a naval officer. I've worked to achieve $200 million in business revenue, impacted the lives of over 25 million people, served in a leadership role at the Pentagon, and been a Sunday school teacher for 15 years. My priorities include fully funding public education, economic growth in all areas, and protection of personal freedoms. Freedom is about having choices, and my top issues allow people choices. And next we'll hear from Nick. He's going to do an introduction for Senator Rachel Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Rachel Hunt is both a senator, a lawyer, and a mother. She has dedicated her professional career to defending the rights of women and children. As a public servant, Rachel is known as a tough negotiator who fights for policies that better serve North Carolina families. As the daughter of North Carolina's own education governor, Jim Hunt, she's leading the charge to make our schools stronger. Hunt is running for lieutenant governor to fight for basic freedoms, create safer communities, and improve our education system. North Carolina deserves better, and will take a Hunt Democrat to get us back on track.
Thank you very much. And now, candidates, you will each be given 1 minute to make your opening statement. We did a random draw, and Captain Robinson will go first for the opening statement, and then also go first for our first topic. And Senator Hunt will follow Captain Robinson. Captain Robinson, because you are going first for introductions and for the queries, you get the privilege of going last in the closing statements at the end. So at this time, you have 1 minute to make your opening statement. The timer will begin when you begin speaking.
Hi, I'm Mark H. Robinson, Democrat candidate for Lieutenant Governor. The reason I'm running is because I'm a servant leader, putting your needs before mine. Two, connected to you. I spoke with over 1,700 of you to learn what the state of North Carolina can do better. And then three, forward-looking. I want to work with the General Assembly to put things in place that are going to benefit the state 30, 40, 50 years from now. But before you know, you can look up the things that I've done on my website, mark4nc.com. I want you to know me as a person. And if you know me as a father, you will be able to connect with me as a person. I tried to instill three things in my children. One, have a personal relationship with God. Two, be the best citizen you can be. And three, do your best at whatever you start out doing. I'm Mark H. Robinson, a Democrat candidate for Lieutenant Governor, and together we can create a better North Carolina.
Thank you so much. All right, up next, we will hear from Senator Rachel Hunt. Senator Hunt, you have 1 minute to make your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I am running for Lieutenant Governor because we need to have someone who speaks the truth in a positive way instead of the hate and divisiveness that Mark Robinson, the Republican, the current Lieutenant Governor, has preached to us for the past 4 years. I firmly believe that if once I get the bully pulpit and can tell people, especially parents, what is happening with the General Assembly that I've been in since 2018, and I have seen the terrible things they have done to public education, to women's reproductive health rights, to the climate, and to all of our people everywhere in the state. We will rise up. We will decide that this is not what we should be doing, and we will elect Democrats statewide. So that is what I am here to do, and that is what I will be doing this entire time.
Thank you so much, Senator Hunt. All right, we are now going to move into the topics and questions, and these will be 1 to 3 minutes long that you'll have to answer them. Our very first topic will be presented by Nick Long. It has to do with motivation for running. According to the schedule, Captain Robinson, you will begin. You will answer this question first, and then Senator Hunt, you will answer it second. And I will now leave it over to Nick Long. Nick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Captain Robinson, in 1 minute or less, please tell us why you decided to run for North Carolina Lieutenant Governor. What was your motivation?
My motivation is to help as many people as I can before I leave this earth. Lots of people have helped me get to where I am. I've lived beyond my expectations growing up on a farm in southeastern North Carolina. I grew up poor, but I had teachers who motivated me. I had parents who motivated me. I had even a janitor who motivated me. And I feel that it's my responsibility to help as many people as I can because others help me. And I'm going to do it through working with the General Assembly and putting things in place that are going to benefit the state 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. Much like the Research Triangle started the year I was born almost. Look at how it has helped the state. And I want to do the same thing for future generations.
Thank you so much. Senator Hunt, what motivated you to run for Lieutenant Governor?
Thank you. I started this journey after working in multiple elections by being a volunteer and a donor. But in 2016, after that election that we saw Trump win, and in 2018, my children were out of the house, and I decided I had to take the ultimate sacrifice, which is what running for office is. And I ran for a seat in the House that was held by Bill Brawley, the finance chair, and was a seat that was a Republican district that Trump won by 10 percentage points. I saw a way that I could win that. I worked my head off and I raised money, and we got through by 68 provisional and absentee ballots. And after that, I have worked in the House and in the Senate doing everything I can, but now I need to step up. We need a woman at the top of the ticket after the Dobbs decision, and that is me.
Fantastic, both of you. Thank you so much. We're going to move into the second topic. This one has to do with priorities. This is a 2-minute question. We will begin this one with Senator Hunt, and then after that, Captain Robinson. So I will read the prompt to you, Senator Hunt. In 2 minutes or less, please share your top 2 to 3 priorities, why you've chosen them, and plan to have to effect them should you become our next Lieutenant Governor. Once again, in 2 minutes or less, please share your top 2 to 3 priorities, why you've chosen them, and plans that you have to effect them should you become our next Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. My top 3 priorities are to make sure North Carolina is the best place to live, work, and raise a family. How can we do this? We have got to get our education, our public education system back on track. It has been decimated by the actions of the legislature, and they believe that only private schools, especially parochial schools, deserve public money. That is wrong. I have fought them every step of the way, and I will continue as Lieutenant Governor. I also firmly believe in a woman's reproductive health care rights. I was the primary sponsor of the Codify Roe v. Wade bill. And by not allowing women to control their health care and decide when and if to have children, you are treating them like second-class citizens, and that is wrong. Third, I firmly believe that if we don't solve the child care crisis in North Carolina, we will fall from being the best state for business, and we will not get back up there for many, many years. So those are my 3 priorities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Captain Robinson, same question for you. In 2 minutes or less, please share your top 2 to 3 priorities, why you've chosen them, and plans you have to effect them should you become our next Lieutenant Governor.
My top 3 priorities are state worker pay, economic growth, personal freedoms. And whenever I talk about state worker pay, I'm talking about paying state workers for the job that they do and make it competitive. And I'm going to specifically drill down to teachers. Teachers is a woman-dominated profession, or it has been for generations. And a comparable profession has been nursing. But for some reason, nurses are viewed as more professional than what teachers are. And what we need to do is to make the teaching profession as professional as we can and pay them appropriately. One of the differences is in the nursing profession, that's in private industry. Teaching is in the public sector. But we need to raise the pay so that we won't have a teacher wherein their primary focus in the classroom should be on the student and not on their second job. So I'm in favor of making the lottery monies over and above what the state funds. The other thing is economic growth. I want to put things in the rural areas that are going to bring in economic growth into those areas. And then lastly, personal freedoms. And primarily, all individuals should have a say on what happens to their body, and specifically women in their reproductive rights. That should be a decision made between the individual, between her healthcare provider, between her family, and between her God. Those are my top priorities, and that's what I'm going to advocate.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. It will be a 2-minute question presented by our organizing director, Michael Abasavage. This will also be a 2-minute question, and the topic has to do with the position of the Lieutenant Governor. So for topic 3, we will start with Captain Robinson, and then we will hear from Senator Hunt. Michael?
Captain Robinson, for the past 4 years, with the split between the governor and the lieutenant governor's party affiliation, the lieutenant governor has been little more than a figurehead. If a Democrat is elected, how will you look to change the lieutenant governor office?
Thanks for the question. How I plan to do is I'm going to start out with treating everyone with respect, regardless of if they are a Republican or Democrat or an independent or anyone. I'm going to start out with treating them with respect, because that's how things are going to get done within the General Assembly. I'm going to bring in also a fresh perspective. And by that, I'm going to bring in what the people of the state of North Carolina have told me that is important to them. I've spoken with over 1,700 of them. And from them, that's where I learned what I need to advocate. And those include the personal freedoms. Those include the pay for state employees. And those also include economic growth throughout the state. And how I plan to do it is by talking with the individuals who are the stakeholders, the individuals who are impacted by the decisions that the General Assembly make. And then I'm going to approach it also by having the approach that we are going to get something done. I'm not going to go in with the approach that this is my enemy. I'm going to go into with the approach that together we can solve the problems of what this state has. And if we work together, and if we look beyond the partisan division, we'll be able to do that. One of the things that the people of North Carolina told me is that they don't want Raleigh to turn into a Washington, D.C. And one lady said, how is it that we can live as neighbors, but when we get to Raleigh, we can't work together? So I'm going to be an advocate to bringing our state back together.
Thank you, Captain Robinson. Senator Hunt, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
For the past 4 years, with a split between the governor and the lieutenant governor's party affiliation, the lieutenant governor has been little more than a figurehead. If a Democrat is elected, how will you look to change the lieutenant governor's position?
Thank you. The lieutenant governor's position has to do very much with, number one, presiding over the Senate. Mark Robinson, the Republican lieutenant governor, has appeared twice in the entire time that the Senate has been in Raleigh. So that is a part of the office, which is number one as to what we're supposed to do. And why is that important? Because the presiding officer dictates which rules are followed and which rules are waived. That impacts everything from how bills are heard, to which people get to speak, to how long they get to speak. And a perfect example of that is we were all supposed to get 30 minutes on the abortion bill by rule, and we each got 10 minutes because Phil Berger said so. So once I am there, I will be consulting my colleagues in the Senate caucus and leadership. Every time we're in session, I will be crafting a strategy to make sure Democrats' voices are heard and to impact which bills are passed. Secondly, the lieutenant governor sits on several boards, which are very important. The board of the State Board of Education, the Community College Board, and the Clean Energy Board. Those are very, very important boards. Mark Robinson has sent surrogates to every single one. I will be at every one myself. But listen, the bully pulpit is where Mark Robinson has really shined. And I will do that in the exact opposite way, waking people up to what is happening in the legislature and how their values and interests are being harmed by their legislators. No, thank you.
Thank you. Wow. We are going to move to topic 4 now, and it's related to the topic that we just covered. Nick is going to present this topic. It has to do with Senate President and Board of Education. Nick, this is a 2-minute question, and I am going to remind everyone that Senator Hunt will answer first and Captain Robinson will answer second. Nick?
Wow, I seem to get the ones that folks already have answered to some extent. So it's Senator Hunt. Among the statutory duties of the Lieutenant Governor are serving as an ex officio member of the Senate who votes to break ties and is President of the Senate. Also is the role of membership on the Board of Education. The current Lieutenant Governor is not known for being very active in these roles. Do you plan to take an active role as Senate President and as a member of the Board of Education?
Thank you. As I said previously, I will be there every time we are in session. That is the role of the Lieutenant Governor. Back when my dad was Lieutenant Governor in 1972, the Lieutenant Governor held the ability to appoint the committee chairs, which was an incredibly important job, which of course no longer exists for the lieutenant governor. But that doesn't mean the lieutenant governor should not be there. And to know how the Senate works is incredibly important. It is very complicated. It is very rules driven. I will go to class with the clerk after the election to know exactly what I can do to help Democrats, even if they're in the minority party. And I will, of course, attend all state board, community college, and the Energy Policy Commission meetings. I am very, very interested in what is happening in education, as I've already said. I was the vice chair of the community college system committee in the House, the only Democrat to hold a position like that. I have worked with Republicans to have funding for community colleges, which is the only educational area that they are willing to give money to. And of course, our community colleges need it. So I was very willing to work with them on that. But listen, if you think you can just go up and work with Republicans, you are dreaming. I had 2 Republicans on my Student Borrowers Bill of Rights, number 1 and number 2 names. And I presented these to multiple committees that were unanimous in letting it go through. This would help people who have student loans pay them back. That should be nonpartisan. And once we got to the 3rd committee and they looked at me, it was all over. So it's incredibly difficult. We have got to find a way to make it better. Thank you.
Captain Robinson. Among the statutory duties of the Lieutenant Governor are serving as an ex officio member of the Senate who votes to break ties and is president of the Senate, and also membership on the North Carolina Board of Education. Current Lieutenant Governor is not known for being active in either of these roles. Do you plan to take an active role as Senate President and or the Board of Education?
Captain Robinson, please unmute. Thank you.
Yes, of course I plan to take an active role because that's what the people of North Carolina expect of their leaders. The Lieutenant Governor, he is the president of the Senate, and he is supposed to be there and be an active member of it. He is supposed to preside over all meetings that go on within the Senate. And so, yes, I do plan to do that. And on the boards of education, of course, because that is one of my top priorities. In order for us to have a workforce, in order for us to meet the challenges that are going to be 30, 40, 50 years from now, we have to educate our population now. And we have to put things in place that are going to drive us to be able to meet the things of the future. We don't know what the things of the future are going to be, but we do know that public school education is going to be the foundation of that. And I believe that by working on the community college board, and the State Board of Education, and also on the charter school board, I'm going to be able to make a difference that's going to be beneficial, because I have individuals, or I've spoken with individuals who they work within the public school education, but they send their children to private school. So I have to balance that. I have to have the wherewithal to know how things fit together. And by being a military officer and working in the Pentagon and being a liaison between the military and the Department of State, I've worked in difficult situations.
Thank you so much, Captain Robinson. Okay, we are coming to our final topic. After that, we will do a quick transition into the closing remarks from the candidates. Again, for that one, Senator Hunt will go first. Captain Robinson will go last during the closing statements. This topic is a candidate's choice topic. It is a 1-minute topic. Captain Robinson, you will start, and then Senator Hunt, you will finish with this one. So here it goes. Please use the next minute to discuss in as much detail as you can an issue central to your candidacy. Once again, 1 minute to discuss in as much detail as possible an issue that is central to your candidacy. It is 1 minute, and Captain Robinson, we will begin with you.
An issue central to my candidacy is being able to work with people, being able to take the partisanship out of government. And that's what the people of North Carolina have told me. They don't want the state to turn into Washington, D.C. And by that, we also need to just put things in place that are going to benefit us as a nation, as a state, and even as a county, and even as a city within the next 10, 20, 30 years. And again, that starts with education, public school education, getting the funding into there to where the teachers can do what they need to do to prepare our next generation to do things that are going to benefit the state and to meet the challenges that are going to be faced by the state 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
Thank you so much, Captain. All right, we'll hear next, same topic for Senator Hunt. One more time, use the next minute to discuss in as much detail as you can an issue central to your candidacy.
My candidacy is all about making North Carolina the best state to live, work, and raise a family. That encompasses the following areas: public education for our children, not funding voucher private schools that are not regulated and have no ability to report to the state for the tax dollars that are spent on them. It also includes affordable and very easy to access childcare, which we do not have. We face a childcare cliff in September of this year when the federal money runs out. People can't work if they don't have childcare. And the final part is women's reproductive health care rights. Women have to be treated as first-class citizens and not as second-class citizens. They have to be able to control their bodies. And if we have those three things, we'll be great.
Thank you very, very much. All right, we are going to go into our closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make their statement. We will begin with Senator Hunt, and after that, we will hear from Captain Robinson. Once they are complete, we will have a tiny bit of information to share with you, and then we will all go about our evenings. For me, I'm going to go have some supper. So with that in mind, we are going to start with Senator Hunt. You have 2 minutes to make your closing statement.
Thank you all so much for having me. I've really enjoyed being here tonight. Listen, this is an incredibly important election at every level. I cannot say how important it is to get back our legislative seats so that we are not in the super minority. But with that, we have to have a Democratic governor, we have to have a Democratic attorney general, and we have to have a Democratic lieutenant governor. These are so, so important, and Supreme Court judge. We've got to have those things. So I am depending on you to go out. We have a system of county keys that we have established, set up like my father did in the 70s. And those are people that are going to organize in counties for us and make sure we got the people canvassing, people going to the polls, and people poll greeting, because I can't be everywhere in the entire state. That is so important. That's called relational organizing, which is something I believe in 100%. The truth is up for grabs now, folks. We know that. People believe different things as truth. So by having only paid media, we are not assured that people will believe what we say. That is why we are depending on people like you talking to your neighbors. And when people see these terrible ads that are coming, both in print and on TV, they can say, I know that person, and that person is not the monster she's being portrayed. That has been incredibly important to me thus far, which is why canvassing has always been incredibly important in all my campaigns. We are going to get this done. We are going to beat these 11 Republicans who are trying to get this job, but we can't do it without you. So please help us. We have got to get this done. We have got to get our state back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Hunt. Captain Robinson, you are up. You've got 2 minutes to make your final closing statement.
I want to first thank you for allowing me to be here. This again fits into how my life has been. Growing up on a farm in Sampson County, starting work at 6 years old, and being able to be inspired by teachers who had the wherewithal to push me, and also the village that I was surrounded by. That is why I am here today, because I have learned that I'm not in this by myself. I'm in this for the people of the state of North Carolina. People help me that I will never be able to thank. And I do try to do that by the things that I've done. I try to pay it forward. And the thing that I think differentiates me from other people is that I dream big. I look at what can it be like? What can it be like if we supplement the state funding with the lottery money? What can public education be like then? The best thing that I've done was to go around the state and speak to over 1,700 people personally, because then I could hear the passion in their voices. I could hear them tell me about having to make the choice between paying their rent and not having enough money for medicine. Listening at a father say that his son died because of an overdose. I want to still make a difference with people, and I want to give them hope, because some people have come up to me and say, I haven't voted before, but if you run, I'll vote for you. I want to make a difference in the state of North Carolina to make it a better North Carolina.
Thank you so much. All right. Well done, both of you. I would like to take a moment to thank both of you for sharing your time with us this evening. It's very, very important for our stakeholders to get to learn about you. I also want to thank you both for stepping forward. This is not easy. When you run, your family runs. I'm sure you're both well aware of that. And thank you also for the services that you have provided to North Carolina and the nation since you've been, well, in the past 30 years. So amazing for that. The next thing that we're going to do is take a look at some upcoming events, and then we're going to wish everyone farewell. We have another one of these forums. It's the final one in our series. It's coming up next, I think it's next Tuesday. It's on February 6th, 6:30 to 8:30. This is our Contested Supreme Court and Council of State Forum. We have a lot of confirms. We are extremely excited about that. So we hope that you will sign up and join us. We also will be celebrating our 44th annual Valentine's Day fundraiser on the 13th. This will be in person, folks, for the first time, I think, in 4 years. It will be at the NC State Club. So please come join us. Reminders to everyone. The primary early voting, it begins on February 15th and goes through March 2nd. Our NCDP precinct annual meeting date, or our PAMS, this is for the entire state, is on February 17th. Our election day, of course, is on March 5th, and the Wake County Convention will take place with an evening approvals meeting on the 15th of March, and then the entire state will be meeting on March 16th for their full county convention. So thank you for that. And on that note, I'm going to wish everyone farewell. Thank you for spending time with us this evening, and we hope to see you again next week.